This is ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
The president wanted to bring in and add new people to the team, and Sean felt like it would be best for that team to be able to start with a totally clean slate.
The White House has had a combative relationship with the press, and now the face of that battle is stepping down. It comes as President Trump continues to push senators to repeal and replace Obamacare, and as the Russia probe sweeps up the Trump family. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohen, and welcome to ABC 7 at 7. Our analysis of the week in Washington is coming up. But first, our top 7 stories at 7. A Bradenton woman is under arrest tonight for stealing over $80,000 from an elderly woman she says she was supposed to be protecting. According to the Sarasota Sheriff's Office, Carrie Stanfield used a $96,000 life insurance settlement for the victim's son to pay her own bills and make other online purchases. She was arrested Wednesday for grand theft of a person 65 years or older. The victim granted Stanfield power of attorney last year before a medical procedure that left her in a rehab facility.
I don't think it's any different than taking your car into a car dealer to be repaired, and then they steal your car.
There were large payments made to insurance providers, cell phone providers. Basically, she was using this money to live, to survive.
Seniors have the option to receive a court-appointed voluntary guardian if they are dealing with a medical issue. A Bradenton man is recovering after an apparent home invasion. The victim lives in the Southern Pines Mobile Home Park. He says he was alerted to the intruders when his dog started barking. He found 4 men outside who forced their way in. At least one of them had a gun. The suspects allegedly took cash, prescription drugs, and other items. The victim says he was struck in the head, but the injuries were minor. Anyone with information is asked to contact Manatee Crime Stoppers at the number on your screen. Sarasota police are cracking down on unlicensed doctors, highlighted by a recent arrest. An anonymous complaint to the Department of Health led to the arrest of Ronald Wheeler. Police say he continued to practice after having his license revoked in April for diagnosing patients with prostate cancer without performing any biopsies.
If there are further victims out there, then we definitely need to bring charges against him on behalf of those victims.
Wheeler's office was on Main Street. The police department is asking any of his patients to contact them immediately. Sarasota County Sheriff's deputies are putting the owner of an emaciated and malnourished dog behind bars. 2 weeks ago, Adria, a pit bull mix, was all but skin and bones. She is now on her way to recovery and has been nicknamed Hope. Investigators found out she wasn't a stray after speaking to the woman who brought the dog in. It turns out she was covering for her 21-year-old neighbor, Brittany Osborne, who is now facing felony charges of animal cruelty.
You hate that these cases kind of top each other, but in this case, I mean, this one topped what I've seen thus far as a dog has gone.
Hope is not quite yet up for adoption, but she will be soon. If you're interested in bringing her into your family, you could contact the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office is also citing 2 store clerks after catching them selling alcohol to minors. 28 stores were visited throughout Sarasota County as part of an undercover operation. 2 were found to be in violation. The mobile gas station 7-Eleven on Clark Road, along with another standalone 7-Eleven also on Clark Road, were cited. A warning to drivers in Sarasota County. Crews are investigating after a water-filled hole opened up in the middle of a street. It happened in the right-hand lane of Marcotte Circle off Wilkinson Road near Cattleman. Crews are still on the scene trying to determine the cause, and if it damaged anything underground. The road remains open and no one has been injured. Federal wildlife officials are considering changing the status of the Florida panther from endangered to threatened. The review is part of a routine classification check conducted every 5 years. Right now, there are around 200 panthers alive in the wild. Last year, there was a record number of deaths, mostly caused by car accidents. Groups trying to protect the big cats say reclassifying them would be disastrous.
This is the chance for people to speak up. This is their chance to say why they believe or don't believe that the panther should be delisted.
You can weigh in on the reclassification by emailing or contacting the contact number on your screen. Public comment continues until August 29th. And now for a check on the weekend weather, here's Steve.
It's going to be a great weekend. If you've liked the past week, you're going to love the weekend as we're stuck in a stable weather pattern. Take a look at our Casey Key webcam. Look at the boat out there. What a great day to be on the water or on the beach enjoying the sun. In the distance, you can see some thunderstorms trying to form, but they really don't develop into much, just towering cumulus for the most part, because we had a fairly stable air mass after this morning's thunder and lightning that really could be heard across a broad area of the Suncoast about 7, 8, 9 o'clock. Right now it is 84 degrees at Sarasota Bradenton International Airport. Our dew point is 73, humidity 69% with a south-southeast wind at 5 miles an hour. Our high this afternoon reached 88, a little cooler than normal, a couple of degrees warmer than normal on the other side for this morning's low, those clouds and storms that built in. Taking a look at our radar, we've had some data problems there, but there's one storm trying to develop around the mouth of the Peace River and in Port Charlotte. But the rest of the Suncoast, even though an outflow boundary blew over us, it looks like we will be dry through the evening. But look what happens in the overnight hours. 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7. Those storms will be around. And our chance of rain, again some data problems here, will be about 40–50% in the overnight hours. We'll have more on the weather coming up and fix these data problems in a little bit.
Okay, thanks a lot, Steve. And still to come, Sean Spicer is stepping down. The White House press secretary is resigning as a new communications director comes in. What does it mean for the relationship between the White House and the media? We'll take a closer look when we return.
When my youngest, Addie, was 2.5, she was diagnosed with leukemia. When we first heard that diagnosis, you feel extremely alone. Walking in that Light the Night light with 6,000 people carrying lights, white for survivors, red for supporters, gold in memory of those who have passed. It's the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's hope that every year there are fewer gold lanterns. Your lantern will make a difference.
Start a team, join a team.
Help us light the night.
I knew I could get myself out of this. I just needed some hope and some help.
I took the first step to recovery when I made the call.
Since 2014, Addiction Hope and Helpline has answered calls for recovery and treatment 24/7, 365 days a year. If you're depressed, drinking, using drugs, or taking pills, call now and talk to someone who cares.
I had problems just getting to sleep, drinking and using pills every night.
I feel like I'm losing control. I'm afraid I'll lose my job or even my family.
Most insurance covers substance abuse. You can get back on track. Call now for hope and help with proven gentle recovery programs.
I never thought that I could be somebody who didn't drink and use drugs.
I have something to hold on to for strength. I'm in recovery, getting the help I need.
Call 800-622-1941. 800-622-1941.
I heard about the Detoli Cancer Center through friends of mine who had been treated here and were very pleased with the treatment.
If there is prostate cancer, we at the Detoli Cancer Center will find it using 3D color flow Doppler ultrasound.
And that helped precisely identify where my cancer was and some additional cancers that were not found during the biopsy. I would recommend the Detoli Cancer Center. As a group of human beings, they are unbelievably great.
I am the resident district manager on the FAU campus for Chartwell. Whenever I see Haley, I do not see a person with a disability. I see a person with extraordinary abilities. Haley is always smiling. She's always on time. She gives fantastic customer service and is always focused on any job that she's given.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
The official Suncoast Storm team at ABC7. We're here for you.
Tonight, upheaval at the White House. The president hiring a new communications director. Hours later, Press Secretary Sean Spicer resigning. This as the White House fends off an onslaught of controversial news reports involving Russia. ABC's Megan Hughes has the latest.
White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer tendering his resignation to the president, tweeting he'll continue through August. This hours after President Trump picks Anthony Scaramucci to lead his communications team.
I think there's been at times a disconnect
between the way we see the president and how much we love the president and the way some of you perhaps see the president.
Scaramucci wasting no time stepping to the podium and wishing Spicer well.
I hope he goes on to make a tremendous amount of money.
Also making personnel announcements.
Sarah's going to be the press secretary, right?
Scaramucci is a Wall Street veteran and Trump donor with no communications experience aside from being a regular Trump defender on TV. Spicer had a feisty relationship with the press from day one of his 6-month tenure.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
And he was skewered on Saturday Night Live. The White House seeking new people and strategies to push back against the ongoing controversies involving the Trump campaign and Russia. According to media reports, the president's legal team is taking a new tack, investigating the investigators. They're trying to dig up conflicts of interest within Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller's team. White House aide Kellyanne Conway says many are Democratic donors, telling Fox and Friends,
"It's relevant that people know what the motivations are."
The White House also responding to reports that the legal team is reviewing the president's pardoning powers.
The president maintains pardon powers like any president would, but there are no announcements or planned announcements on that front whatsoever.
President Trump releasing a statement wishing Sean Spicer continued success, also pointing to his great TV ratings. Megan Hughes, ABC News, Washington.
Coming up, former Republican Congressman David Jolly is at the trapezoid. We'll get his take on the president, on the Russia investigation, and hopes for getting anything done. Stay with us.
I'm calling in regards about my mother, and I'm here, and I just want to thank you because it saved my mother's life yesterday, and I'd like to know the names of the people that came in and saved her. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
With Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-990-3613. That's 1-800-990-3613. Call now, 1-800-990-3613.
What if this is all you need from your wireless provider, but what you're actually paying for is this, or even an unlimited plan? At Consumer Cellular, you don't need an unlimited budget, because when you switch to us, you'll only pay for what you need. Our average customer gets all the talk, text, and data they need for less than $25 a month. Many pay even less, as plans start as low as $10 a month. You'll love our reliable nationwide coverage and enjoy exceptional customer support. J.D. Power ranked us highest in customer service 2 times in a row. Plus, we've been an approved AARP provider since 2008 because of the superior support and outstanding value our service provides to members, including exclusive discounts. You can even keep your number and your phone, or get a great new one from us. Switching couldn't be easier. There are no contracts, and it's all backed by a 30-day risk-free guarantee. And now, for a limited time, get a $20 credit on any new line of service. Call 1-800-363-1903. Go to consumercellular.com or visit a Target store today.
Are you a soccer mom or dad? Regardless of their age or experience level, when your kids play soccer or any other sport, there's one person on the sideline who is key to help recognize and seek medical care for sports-related concussion. It's you. You need to know the signs and symptoms of concussion, and you need to act if you think your child has been injured. Remember, when in doubt, sit them out. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/concussion. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004.
Every week on Animal Outtakes, it's a new adventure. From meeting curious lemurs to feeding big cats and hosing down rhinos, there's never a dull moment. And sometimes these amazing animals chime in. Tune in to Animal Outtakes to find out what they have to say. Watch Animal Outtakes every week on ABC7.
Welcome back. Looks like Melissa McCarthy is out of a job. Sean Spicer's alter ego on Saturday Night Live captured the sometimes surreal and combative drama of Sean Spicer's brief 6-month tenure as White House press secretary. Spicy is out, but it's the president himself stepping on his own agenda. Earlier in the week, he put Republican senators on notice to get an Obamacare repeal and replace to his desk for a signature, then changed the subject by telling the New York Times he regretted hiring Jeff Sessions as Attorney General because of his recusal in the Russia investigation. And then word Trump wants to know if he can pardon aides, family members, and perhaps even himself. And the focus this week was supposed to be on Buy American. Joining us for analysis of the week in Washington is Rita Ferrandino of the Sarasota County Democratic Party, David Jolly, a former Republican congressman from Pinellas County, and Zach Anderson, political reporter of the Herald Tribune. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Great to be with you.
I'm curious what all of you are thinking about. I mean, it's Friday, so there must be late breaking news. We have Sean Spicer out. You know, David, it's hard for any press secretary, no matter how good they are, to have a consistent message when the boss is kind of like freelancing on their own.
Well, that's true. And listen, I think it's a universal truth that Sean Spicer had the hardest job in Washington. We know that. And look, I'm no defender of Donald Trump, but I would also say Sean Spicer was bad at his job. I mean, truly. So the role and responsibility of the press secretary is to give voice to the president's agenda. And when you're being lampooned on Saturday Night Live, you're clearly falling short of that. But he couldn't do that with an administration that continued to lie, a president who undermined his own staff, if you will. This is also a bigger narrative, though, of whether or not the president is retooling for a very hard fight on Russia and doing away with the establishment D.C. Beltway Republicans like Priebus and Spicer and others, and doubling down on this Donald Trump, drain the swamp, bring in the hard punchers like we're seeing with Scaramucci.
You know, as I mentioned at the outset, you know, right when he was trying to push the Republican senators on bringing up Obamacare repeal and replace again, he gives this interview to the New York Times where he says he regrets hiring Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. Late breaking news, folks. The Washington Post is reporting that Sessions was caught up on an intercept by the intelligence community talking about the campaign with the Russians. Rita, what do you make of that?
I think that Donald Trump wants him fired. He wants him gone. And so I think it's really interesting that all of a sudden he is, Donald Trump says he wants him gone, and then this gets leaked.
Zach?
I think it just shows that the Russian stuff is just a drip, 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 and it's a huge problem for Trump right now. You know, he still is holding a large majority of Republicans are behind him. You know, you look at polls and his approval rating with Republicans is somewhere 70, 80%, but it's not necessarily whether he's holding the base right now that is his biggest issue. His biggest issue is a legal issue, and his legal issue are these questions about collusion and all these other issues that the Russian investigation raises. And so far, it just looks like it's getting worse and worse. You know, we heard this week that he's actually been looking at trying to figure out if he could pardon himself or members of his family. And, you know, people usually don't look into that unless they're concerned for some reason.
And David, there was a story that was published today raising the issue of how long or what will it take for congressional Republicans to say, don't go that far? Is it if he fired the special counsel? Is it involving Sessions? Is it pardons? You were there. You know what these folks are thinking.
Unfortunately, I actually think it will require some evidence of criminal activity, and maybe that's the Mueller report. Understand that Clinton impeachment really caught wind when we knew there was perjury under oath. The President of the United States had lied, some form of criminal or civil violation, if you will. But let's not underestimate Donald Trump. He is somebody, a strategist, who found a way to get elected to be President of the United States. He's a guy who sees the clouds gathering, if you will. 2 weeks before we learned of the Donald Trump Jr. meeting with the Russians, they actually hired attorneys to protect Donald Trump Jr. Earlier this week, Donald Trump distanced himself from Jeff Sessions, and tonight we learn there's more information about Jeff Sessions. Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's good for the country or not, he is a smart chess player, and I think that's what we're seeing with today's firing, essentially, of Sean Spicer, bringing in a new spokesperson.
Rita, do you have any thoughts or hopes from your position that should this get worse, that Republicans in the Congress will say, Mr. President, you can't go this far?
So I want to just go back to what Zach was talking about with the fact that Donald Trump seems to be holding his base. Because I think what we're seeing is that there's been a slow erosion of his base. And I think that there was a Reuters poll and report that just came out, which said 1 of 8 Republicans who have self-identified themselves as having voted for Donald Trump would not do it further. So it's slowly starting to happen. And A lot of what you're reading about with the Republicans' approval rating is Republicans that are selecting themselves to say they're Republicans, because often the ones that don't believe in what Donald Trump are doing aren't calling themselves Republicans anymore. Do you have any comment there?
Those Republicans have nowhere to go, though, and we saw this in Georgia 6, right? It was a special election that Democrats really should have won. It was a district that President Trump won by 1.5 points, but frankly, Republicans were able to hold that. And I'm a center-right Republican who says today, I don't know where to go in this Republican Party, but it's not to the Democrats. And I think that the question is, where do those 1 in 8 that Rita speaks of, where do they go?
Because, Zach, you talk to folks around here all the time, and you know that with a lot of people around here, including a lot of Republicans, they don't really care about the Russia investigation.
No, they think that it's just fake news. They believe what the president says, that this is the greatest witch hunt in history. And, you know, that feeling is still, a lot of congressmen can still feel that. There was an interview that Tom Rooney, who represents southern Sarasota County, gave with the New York Times this week, where Rooney disavowed Trump before the election when the Access Hollywood tape came out about Trump bragging about using his celebrity to be able to touch women. Rooney said, I'm not going to vote for him. But he said after the election he's trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, because in his district, which is heavily Republican, the support for Trump is still palpable. I don't know how that has changed in the last week. I think maybe it's eroded a little, but it's still pretty strong.
We are just getting started with our conversation, and we'll pick it right up right after we check the weather.
Attention blood thinner users. If your loved one took Xarelto or Pradaxa and suffered serious internal bleeding, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. The widely prescribed blood thinners Xarelto and Pradaxa have been linked to a number of dangerous side effects, including internal bleeding, gastrointestinal bleeding, kidney bleeding, stroke, brain hemorrhaging, and even death. If you or a loved one suffered any of these injuries after taking Xarelto or Pradaxa, call right now. You may be owed significant compensation from the manufacturer. Thousands of blood thinner users may have been exposed to serious risk by these dangerous medications. If you or a loved one took Xarelto or Pradaxa and suffered serious internal bleeding, call right now. Call Nightline Legal to speak with an experienced attorney for a free consultation. If we don't win, there is no fee. There are time deadlines to file a claim, so don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-554-3987. Again, that's 1-800-554-3987.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
For more than 100 years, American Humane Association has been teaching kids to be kind to animals. Those in our homes, on the farms, on the silver screen, and wildlife conservation, caring for the world's vanishing creatures. But we can't do it alone. Visit kindness100.org to find ways to teach kids how they can make a more caring, compassionate, and humane world for all of us.
Tonight on ABC7 News at 7.
The irony is that in this particular case, the extreme backlash against this ad has really given it more exposure than it ever would have gotten if people had just ignored it and let it play out for the NRA members like they always do.
Is a new NRA ad trying to pit Americans against Americans? I'm Alan Cohn. We'll discuss if the NRA is going too far.
Tonight on ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
Our analysis of the week in Washington continues in a moment, but right now let's get a check on our forecast from meteorologist Steve Newman. Steve.
Alan, things turned after this morning's storms ended. The atmosphere became much more stable, so we didn't get building clouds. It was a fairly decent afternoon without the storms, except in inland parts. We're talking, say, from the I-75 corridor to the Gulf of Mexico. Right now at the airport, it's 84 degrees, humidity 69% with a dew point of 73, down a couple of degrees during the afternoon. And our high today, pretty close to normal, 88, and last night's low 77, within 2 degrees on both counts. Our record high set back in 1918. Yes, when we were a little fishing village here in Sarasota. Across the state, it's cooling off, not only because of the rain, because a lot of wind, too. 80 at Tampa at this hour, 85 at Fort Myers. Miami had some strong storms earlier today. Well, there is one last storm on the radar, and it's down in Charlotte County, southern Sarasota County, between Rotunda and Port Charlotte. A lot of positive strikes and lightning, so stay indoors during the storm as it moves in and will dissipate over the lower part of the Maca River Basin. It is turning really hot in the Midwest, dangerously hot, and this pattern is going to stay because of high pressure that blankets the southern two-thirds of the nation. All the activity is up north, upper Mississippi Valley, northern plains, and things are really firing in the last couple of hours up there. It used to be just a flood watch for Chicago and parts of Iowa. This is a severe thunderstorm watch. We have a tornado warning in effect in parts of southeastern Iowa, and up in the northern part of the Mississippi Valley, we have a very strong storm approaching, just went through Bemidji, Minnesota, approaching Brainerd, and now it could hit Duluth within about 2 hours. Well, let's go from the middle latitudes down to the deep tropics, and things have quieted down. I don't think through the end of July we'll have any tropical storm development across the Atlantic. This is the time of year where we've had those waves of Saharan dust that kind of suppresses that activity. That peaks in July, and then during August, the activity begins to increase right on through September. That would be a typical pattern, and it shows signs that that could indeed be happening. Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico mainly quiet. We have a little trough of low pressure right across the northern Gulf of Mexico. You can kind of see the activity associated with that. Here's our futurecast taking us through the evening hours. The thunderstorms decrease overnight, but more come in the small hours of the night. 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, we could see more thunderstorms. And then on Sunday, a repeat, but perhaps not quite the coverage we will see tomorrow. So here's my forecast for tonight. It will be partly cloudy with some storms possible in the overnight. 76 for the low temperature. The average is 75. And our 7-day outlook shows that we have a good chance of thunderstorms developing right each day through Saturday and Sunday. Into Monday, I think things may dry out a little bit with only a 30% chance of storms developing. But next week, a return to a very typical pattern for the latter part of July. Alan will be back with his guest in just a few minutes.
Outdoor living is one of the greatest perks about living in Florida. So whether this is your style, or this, or maybe this, contact Superior Pools. They've been building pools from Sarasota to Naples since 2001, and they would love to build yours.
This is important news for women who were administered chemotherapy intravenously for breast cancer and then suffered permanent hair loss. Some women administered the breast cancer chemotherapy drug Taxotere have suffered from permanent hair loss on scalp, eyebrows, and eyelashes. If you suffered permanent hair loss after chemotherapy for breast cancer, call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now to find out if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. You're gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
WWSB ABC7 is an equal opportunity employer, and we're looking for qualified people to join our dynamic team. For a list of current openings and to apply online, visit www.mysuncoast.com/contact/employment. If you're a motivated team player and you want a rewarding career in a fun, fast-paced working environment, WWSB ABC7 could be the perfect fit for you. Check out our list of openings now.
On the next Black Almanac.
While there may be occasions where public-private partnerships make sense, they are relatively rare. The problem, an inherent conflict of interest. Whenever the government's ties become too strong, how can we expect government officials to regulate that company with any objectivity?
Sunday morning at 7:30 on ABC7.
ABC7's official Suncoast Hurricane Guide arms you with vital information you need to protect your family and property when severe weather threatens the Suncoast, including how to create your readiness plan and survival kit. Download yours today at mysuncoast.com.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the week in Washington. Our guests tonight are Rita Ferrandino of the Sarasota County Democratic Party, David Jolly, a former Republican congressman for Florida's 13th District, and Zach Anderson, politics editor for the Herald Tribune. Let's talk about the Republican health care bill, which it's fair to say it's on life support. The effort to pass it obviously was not helped by the terrible news that John McCain has brain cancer, which would make that vote in the short term, difficult. So what happens now? The president brought all the Republican senators in this week and said, get a bill done, before he changed the subject in terms of Russia. David, you know how things work on the Hill. Where are we?
So first of all, we're dealing with a political disaster. This is a historically unpopular bill, right? Somewhere in about 20%. We do not have a policy leader in the White House. That's clear. We know the president doesn't lead on policy. We are a deeply divided Republican Party, unable to get over 51% on the signature issue of the past 6 years. And here's why. Listen, if you're in the country tonight watching the healthcare debate, you're seeing it one of three ways. You either benefited through financial assistance of subsidies or Medicaid expansion. You benefited through additional coverage because of pre-existing conditions or some of the rules of Obamacare. Or you were the low to medium risk family who saw your premiums go up, who were a victim of the lie of the year, who saw your plans change. Republicans are only speaking to that third group, and they're ignoring the first two. And frankly, Democrats are probably relying on the first two and ignoring a little bit of the third. But that's why there is no consensus on this issue and why it's a historically unpopular bill right now.
Rita, people like David would be asking you, where's the Democratic plan to fix the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I think Democrats have been willing and have been out front in saying that they are willing to work on trying to make a solution, and they have not been called upon. And personally, I'd like to see them step out and lead on this, and I hope they do.
So Rita should be the voice of Democrats right now, because
I
for
am
years,
the voice of Democrats.
Well, listen, but for years the Democrats in Washington have said we'd be happy to sit down. But honestly, where is their plan? And there is not a plan.
So,
and I think Republicans should say to Schumer, show us your plan.
Well, Stuart Rothenberg, the columnist, wrote today, any bill that gets bipartisan support is almost certain to keep the architecture of Obamacare in place. And that is a non-starter for many Republicans who have just spent 7 years promising to get rid of it.
That's true. And I think what he's saying is this. Any bill now in 2017 will be measured against the protections that are now in law as a result of Obamacare. Listen, when Republicans ran against Obamacare in 2011, 2012, 2013, it was historically unpopular. Democrats were running away from it. The rollout was a disaster. Frankly, I won an election because so many people had anxiety over Obamacare. Now in 2017, people are relying on those additional protections. That doesn't mean Republicans need to embrace Obamacare. We can still object to the fundamental tenets of it, but we will be measured against the protections that Obamacare put into place.
And Republicans are being measured against the fact that this president has been in place 6 months, and there's been really no legislation that has come to pass. It's starting to hurt.
You know, a couple of months ago, a lot of the members of Congress had town hall meetings that were well attended and very lively, including Gus Bilirakis, where thousands of people came out to challenge him on his vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Our colleagues at the Tampa Times went out and tried to ask all members of Congress from our area to talk about what they are doing now. And Wendy March from the Times asked a series of questions to Congressman Buchanan and only got a one-sentence statement basically saying the status quo is unacceptable. The Senate should put forward the best plan to provide affordable and access of health care for all Americans. Is there any pressure on Vern Buchanan or other members of Congress to, and I know the bill is in the Senate right now, but to get something done here?
You know, the House passed something, so Buchanan, voted for a repeal and replace measure, despite a lot of pressure on the left. He had a big town hall here in Sarasota where thousands of people turned out. Most of them were opposed to this GOP bill, but he moved forward with it. And he's a loyal Republican, and he doesn't really see the political upside, I don't think, equivocating too much on this or moving too much to the left. I mean, this is his district, and most of the GOP districts are really still pretty solidly conservative districts. There's not a whole lot of swing districts out there. So the idea that if they don't get something done in the Senate, they're going to try and come together and do something on a bipartisan basis, I don't see it. I think they'll do what Trump said and say, try and let the law fail, undermine it somehow, reduce the subsidies. But for the House members, especially like Buchanan or Tom Rooney locally, they voted to repeal and replace. They're not going to go for something that's a lot more, along the lines of just tweaking Obamacare a little bit, I don't think.
And so where, Congressman, you used to be with these folks here. Do your former colleagues just stand pat?
They do. Listen, eventually Republicans do Republican things, right? And Republicans are insulated by supermajority Republican districts. Democrats are insulated by supermajority Democratic districts. The only way this changes is, frankly, a voter-led initiative in the state of Florida that revisits fair districts to say we are going to require electorally competitive districts where every member of Congress has as close to a 50-50 district as possible, where they have to try to represent everybody. But as it stands now, Republicans are going to vote to repeal Obamacare, Democrats are going to vote to keep it, and nobody will meet in the middle.
And the American public has no movement. They lose.
They lose. That's right.
Going back into that new polling that you said that 1 in 8 Trump voters now
Republican Trump voters.
Right. Say that they would not vote for Trump again, but still his support among the base is pretty strong. On the other hand, of those who said that they would not vote for him again, some say that they were tired of his daily trolling of Democrats, the media, and the judiciary. Some were disappointed that the Trump administration has not yet swept illegal immigrants out of their communities. Others said that the president has not ended the mistrust and hyper-partisanship in Washington as much as they hoped for.
I saw another really interesting on Fox News today. The banner said 73% of Democrats state that they would give up drinking if Donald Trump was impeached. And I thought that was a really funny Fox News headline. I mentioned that about the 1 in 8 Republicans because the independents have peeled off from Donald Trump at a far greater rate.
But let me ask you this, though. I mean, where is the Democratic messaging? Where is the strategy? Where is the game plan to come back and try to win back some of those voters, some of whom voted for Barack Obama twice and voted for Donald Trump this time?
Democrats are preparing for another wave election. Democrats are working very hard to put highly qualified candidates into seats because they're preparing for this to be a wave election that we're going to see in 18.
Without any kind of messaging saying that we deserve to be there?
So I can't speak to the messaging, but I think that that they're going to be rolling out a plan. And what we see here on at the ground level, at the local level, is engaging the people that they're expecting the Democrats and the independents who are so disappointed in Trump to be leading.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, plus what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, sober living houses.
Credit card debt can ruin your life. If you owe $10,000 and minimum payments are siphoning away your paycheck each month, you can get debt-free in less time than you think.
I've paid $800 a month for the past 3 years and haven't changed the balance on my credit card.
Get debt-free now has a program to reduce your debt, stop the harassing phone calls, avoid financial ruin, and settle for less than you owe.
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
You're pre-approved for our special hardship program if you owe $10,000 or more. Upon payment of your new lower balance, your debt will finally shrink until you are debt-free.
My family no longer has 30 years of payments ahead of us at 20% interest.
There's no fees until you see results. So call now, make one monthly program payment, and free up your cash. Resolve your debt.
Call 800-685-6422, 800-685-6422.
It's been about a month, and I can honestly say I've seen the change in me. I went from being a depressed girl who didn't want help to this happy, caring girl who loves helping other people. I just really hope that people that went through what I went through get the help that they need because their story is important and they are loved. Thank you so much for everything.
everybody can make something, because I think everyone has a spark of creativity, and the reason that I have to keep making is because I don't think my life would be as fulfilling without it. If you make things yourself, that means you're not cowering in fear. You're out there taking chances. That, I think, is my way of saying I love you to the world. All right, now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, step-by-step videos, and Suncoast Restaurant Guide. You'll find it all at mysuncoast.com/dining.
Welcome back. What should we make of President Trump's first 6 months in office and the major staff changes just this week? Our guest joining us right now for final thoughts. David, you have been quite a critic out there. We've seen you everywhere from CNN to MSNBC and Bill Maher. You are a right-of-center Republican, right. But still there are a lot of people who are watching this show tonight who are sticking with this president,
sure.
And they still support him. What would you say to them?
First, I'm going to be a Republican long after Donald Trump decides he's not. And I say that in the tone of this is a family conversation fighting for what we believe should be the face and values of the Republican Party. I think the president, Donald Trump, is wrong for our party, wrong for the country, and I intend to be a part likely of whatever primary challenge we see emerge to Donald Trump. But
that's news right there.
Well, I do, and I think you will see that emerge, and I will be an active part of it.
And you're also ruling out a party switch.
And I'm ruling out a party switch. I think it's wrong to switch parties. I'm a center-right Republican with nowhere else to go but to fight for the bull moose Republicans within my party. But I would also say this to my Republican friends, take solace. I think the Democratic Party is just as divided today without a leader. We have a leader who divides us. The Democratic Party today, while they are mobilized by opposing Trump, I don't believe they have a unified message nor a messenger to follow going into 18.
You know, Rita, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate you being here tonight, but they're saying, they're Democrats, and they're saying that what they have seen from David Jolly and his evolution over the last couple of years, they would vote for him over what they're seeing from anybody else.
And the question
Say
is?
yes.
Yes.
The question is, does the Democratic Party lack in terms of the kinds of candidates out there that are capable of winning elections in this part of Florida?
Well, that's the whole game. The whole game is recruiting highly qualified candidates, and they've got to come from, you know, we used to have a farm system and it used to be well defined, and that's not the case anymore. And so I know locally here there's been a big resurgence in recruiting and being able to find the candidates who are going to be able to cross the aisle like David Jolly's doing.
Zach, do you see any evidence out there that if we're talking about a wave election in the midterms, that the Democrats are getting well positioned to actually take advantage of that?
Well, at least in Florida, we haven't seen a whole lot of top-tier candidates emerge yet for some of these seats, like a Vern Buchanan seat. He has a Democrat challenging him, but he's not very well known. Trump is historically unpopular. Let's not kid ourselves. He is got a 36% approval rating. He's the most unpopular president 6 months in 70 years, according to the latest Washington Post ABC poll. So there's a lot of opportunity for Democrats here, and it could be a wave election. But they really do. They have to recruit well. You have some congressional candidates like Charlie Crist up in St. Pete who have raised a lot of money, but you really haven't seen a whole lot of it. So a lot needs to happen for the party in the next few months.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. But we want to, before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, sober living houses. Florida's deadly opioid epidemic is causing the number of these facilities to increase across the state. They are meant to be a bridge between rehabilitation and returning homes. While many are reputable, there are cases, particularly on the East Coast, of sober houses taking advantage of addicts and profiting off of their relapses. For the most part, they are unregulated, and we asked you what you thought about sober houses. Lisa Marie writes, most of the facilities are legitimate facilities with people who really do care about the well-being of others. It's very sad that there are some places that prey on people that struggle with addiction. Nancy Pinnell writes, hoping the bad sober living facilities get shut down or go defunct. We need to help the transition from rehab to living in a society as a sober person. And Kevin Kolzak writes, just as long as my tax dollars are not involved. Well, what do you think about the week in Washington? Join tonight's conversation by visiting our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions. They're on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to all our guests for being here tonight. Rita Ferrandino is with the Sarasota County Democratic Party. David Jolly is a former Republican congressman for Florida's 13th Congressional District. And Zach Anderson is the political editor for the Herald Tribune. When we return, we'll have a final look at your weather, plus reclaiming millions of dollars for Floridians. The state's insurance helpline is helping get your money back. We'll have the details in our primetime headlines.
This is an important medical announcement. Xarelto and Pradaxa have been linked to uncontrollable bleeding and even death. If you've been prescribed one of these drugs and have experienced these dangerous side effects, you may be entitled to substantial compensation. Studies show that Pradaxa can cause more heart attacks than warfarin, and other countries have already issued safety warnings against this drug. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. The call is confidential, there's no cost, and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to Pradaxa victims, and thousands of Xarelto victims are filing their legal cases. Call the Drug Watch hotline. If you or a loved one used Xarelto or Pradaxa and experienced uncontrollable bleeding, brain hemorrhage, or even death, you must call now.
Call 800-793-6055. 800-793-6055.
Invest in Kids is a $7.5 million project to build a new Boys and Girls Club in South Manatee County. I'm Caleb Grimes, and I was a club kid. It's where I learned important life lessons, leadership, integrity, responsibility, and baseball. Thousands of kids attend the Boys and Girls Clubs, and after years of use, their club is slowly falling apart. Help us invest in kids. Make your donation today.
Thank you! When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Your primetime headlines are coming up in a moment, but right now let's get a final check on our forecast from meteorologist Steve Newman. Steve.
Alan, it's a tranquil evening, but it could become stormy overnight with some thunderstorms moving in from the northwest. We'll check that in a minute. But currently at the airport, it's 84, dew point 73, humidity 69%. And even though we've had a lot of rain in the area, at the airport today, only 0.13, 13/100ths of an inch, and that means we're about an inch and a half below normal for the month, and for the year, about almost 3.5 inches, but it's early in the summer. We'll probably get some more storms. And speaking of which, this is a trough of low pressure out over the Gulf. It looks like these storms are going to sag over us overnight, producing maybe some rounds of thunder as you're sleeping at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. We had one storm down in southern part of Sarasota and Charlotte County, but it has matured. It had a lot of lightning, but it's washing out over Port Charlotte right now, so I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. Now, a lot of heat right up and down the Midwest. Current temperatures, about 100 degrees in these shaded areas. Cools off only to about 80 overnight, but then boom, it comes back up. 104 tomorrow at Wichita, 104 Oklahoma City, even St. Louis, 101. This not only is miserable for human beings, it's miserable for the livestock across this area and for agriculture. There's a lot of agriculture in this area, and they need regular rains in the summer to make sure that the crops don't wither. So hopefully this pattern controlled by high pressure will shift eastward and things will improve. But right now, it looks like the northern part of the country is getting the storms. Taking a quick look at the tropical weather outlook, things have calmed down considerably, and we should not have any tropical storm development right on through the end of July, but maybe in the first and second week of August, things could begin to heat up as we get more favorable conditions, and that Sahara dust that blows off Africa begins to thin out. If you look carefully, you can see that trough of low pressure here right across the northern Gulf, and this is that area of cloud that could bring us storms overnight approaching from the northwest. So if we take a look at the high-resolution futurecast overnight, look at this. Here's 10, 11, 12, 1 in the morning, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We could have some late-night storms, and that's what the forecast is calling for. Partly cloudy skies and warm. Overnight storms possible, low temperature 76. And for tomorrow, another sunny, hot day with scattered thunderstorms developing. Average high for the date, it would be 90, 88 is a predicted high temperature with east winds in the morning, southeasterly 5 to 10 miles an hour in the afternoon. And here's that 7-day outlook. 40 to 50% chance of showers through the weekend, and a less of a chance, I think, for Monday and Tuesday, and then things moisten back up by the middle of next week, but pretty typical weather for this time of year. Alan will be back with primetime headlines right after these words.
Are you Goodwill?
Yes, because when I donate
or shop at Goodwill,
I'm creating a job.
I am Goodwill, yeah, yeah.
Attention blood thinner users. If your loved one took Xarelto or Pradaxa and suffered serious internal bleeding, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. The widely prescribed blood thinners Xarelto and Pradaxa have been linked to a number of dangerous side effects, including internal bleeding, gastrointestinal bleeding, kidney bleeding, stroke, brain hemorrhaging, and even death. If you or a loved one suffered any of these injuries after taking Xarelto or Pradaxa, call right now. You may be owed significant compensation from the manufacturer. Thousands of blood thinner users may have been exposed to serious risk by these dangerous medications. If you or a loved one took Xarelto or Pradaxa and suffered serious internal bleeding, call right now. Call Nightline Legal to speak with an experienced attorney for a free consultation. If we don't win, there is no fee. There are time deadlines to file a claim, so don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-554-3987. Again, that's 1-800-554-3987.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
We asked you, Suncoast, why do you like ABC7?
I like ABC7 because it's local.
It gives me all the local news, local weather.
It's so local and so community-driven.
Kelly Wilgus does a great job.
John Scalzi, that's my guy.
Bob Harrigan is wonderful. Stephanie's my favorite.
I like Scott Dennis.
I like them all.
We're all very grateful that you cover what you do and you're here to participate with the community.
ABC7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
I'm Alan Cohn. A call to actual arms. A new ad by the National Rifle Association talks about us versus them, but could it incite violence? We'll debate.
Monday on ABC7 News at 7. Your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
Now for your primetime headlines. U.S. citizens will soon be banned from visiting North Korea. The State Department announcing it will block travel beginning in late August, but strongly warns Americans from going there in the interim. Once in effect, U.S. passports will be invalid for travel and through the country. The State Department cites a serious risk of arrest and long-term detention as the reason for the ban. Hundreds of people have been injured and 2 have died during a pre-dawn earthquake in Greece and Turkey. The countries are now working to clean up the following a powerful 6.5 magnitude quake. It caused buildings to crumble and injured more than 500 people, killing at least 2 Swedish tourists and Turkish nationals. Hundreds of thousands of vacationers and locals in the 2 countries were kept awake by dozens of aftershocks that followed the main quake, while many sleeping outdoors. Here in Florida, a viral video of a wife asking an undercover cop posing as a hitman to kill her husband. Today, she is learning her fate. ABC's Maggie Rulli has the latest.
The sentencing phase is underway in Florida for Dalia DiPolito, the former escort now in shackles, found guilty in a murder-for-hire plot to kill her husband of 6 months, Michael DiPolito, in 2009. Her defense arguing for leniency.
Whether it be straight probation and no prison, which
Like I said, I think that's what she deserves after what she's been through.
But prosecutors pushing for the maximum, 30 years.
This crime is so heinous and so deplorable that someone should be able to serve 30 years in state prison.
Using her own words against her, Dahlia on tape, hiring a hitman to kill her husband.
You know, he gets 2 in the head. That's it.
I'm positive, like 5,000% sure.
During her trial, Dahlia said she was simply acting, and it was all part of a project that she, her then husband, and her former lover, Mohammed Shihadi, had written together.
The tape was a show, it was a tape. That was the purpose of it.
You were acting in those tapes?
Yes.
But that hitman, really an undercover cop. With police recording the whole thing, they pretended the hit worked, staging an elaborate crime scene and telling Dahlia her husband had died. The jury believing that time Dahlia really was acting. Today's sentencing is years in the making. An initial guilty verdict in 2011 was thrown out over a tainted jury. Then a 2016 retrial resulted in a hung jury. Finally, in 2017, during her third trial, Dahlia was found guilty again. Maggie Rulli, ABC News, New York.
Florida's unemployment rate is at the lowest level in a decade. New jobs report shows only 4.1% of residents are unemployed, down 0.2% from the month before, while the state added more than 19,000 jobs in June. An estimated 419,000 people are still looking for work. The unemployment rate in Sarasota and Manatee counties are below the state average at 3.9%. Floridians collectively recovered more than $16 million from insurance companies so far this year, thanks to the taxpayer-funded Insurance Consumer Helpline. Run by the state's chief financial officer, the helpline works on behalf of consumers who have disputes with their insurance companies over claims and premium refunds. Simple errors like forgetting to include photos or failing to sign the form can lead to a claim denial or getting back less money than expected. The state says that's where the hotline can help.
We are there to represent the consumer's interest and to try to provide some expertise to maybe reach a middle ground between the insurance company and the consumer so that everybody feels that there is a fair and amicable resolution to whatever the issue may be.
The helpline is available for any type of insurance issue. You can get assistance by calling the number on your screen. And finally tonight, an annual tradition is underway in Key West, the 37th Papa Hemingway Lookalike Contest. More than 160 bearded men are competing to take the prize. The event honors writer Ernest Hemingway, who made Key West his home in the 1930s. The winner will be chosen tomorrow night. And that's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us, and have a great weekend.